Good morning, and thank you for tuning in. My name is Carissa Deshays, and this is my weekly podcast, Faith Over Fear. I am so honored and so grateful to have Corie Watkin here with me today. Corie and I got connected through a mutual friend, and we've connected a few times, and she is such an incredible human. She shared some of her testimony with me, and I can't wait for her to share it with all of you as well. Corie, how are you doing today?
Truly blessed to be here and honored to be able to share my stories.
Yeah, you have quite the testimony. I mean, it was kinda like I feel like everything happens for a reason and, you and I connecting, it was just like listening to you. I mean, in the short time that we've had speaking, like, you've inspired me and, like I shared with you, me starting this podcast was really just an honor that was God-given in order to share testimonies with people, to give other people a voice who might be still in the darkness or just need that, little bit of inspiration to know that they're not alone with whatever it is that they're going. So, talking about your testimony of faith, is that something that you've always had or what really kind of like brought you to that within your life?
Well, I mean, I've dealt with a lot of difficulties and struggles throughout my life, the last one obviously being the biggest, but I've always felt God present. Like it's hard to hear his voice if you already know what you want him to say. And so it's just finding that quiet time to really be with him and not try to override the conversation with him with my own thoughts. I'm not sure what led me to that. Both of my parents are very strict conservative Catholics, and that was the upbringing I was brought up in. But it was really getting out there and testing my faith, feeling my life without, well, I shouldn't say without God in it because he's always been in it, but without my pursuit of religion, if you will.
Right.
And then feeling missing pieces, trying to fill those voids in ways that, weren't very good. And then, really just coming back around to seeing the blessings he's brought into my life and just retraining my brain to just be very thankful. I know it's going to be weird for most people to hear, but I am more grateful that I was diagnosed with terminal stage 4 colon cancer than anything. People are like, I'm sorry you went through it. I'm like, I'm not. It brought more blessings in my life than anything. Now, don't get me wrong, it sucked going through it, but,
Of course.
and there was many days I kinda wished I wouldn't make it through it because it was that just uncomfortable physically, mentally, emotionally, I was depleted.
Wow.
But that's when I'd hear him go, "Hey, don't give up. Your cross isn't as big as mine." Or, "You've got people to be an example for. Step up, don't give up."
Well, there's always that saying that's which I'm sure you've heard it, but it's like God gives his toughest battles to his strongest soldiers. And, when we're going through human condition and we have all these experiences and life just keeps lifing and we never know what our true destiny is going to look at. Like for me, I thought my whole life I had it all planned. Like, oh, I'm gonna do this, gonna do this. If you would have told me a decade ago that by 30 I'd have 2 kids, went through active addiction, homelessness, experienced all this chaos, I would have looked at you and said, "No, you're crazy. There's no way that stuff's gonna happen." So, I think it's really beautiful and it's really inspiring how, because people that would get diagnosed with something so life-changing could fall into that ideology of and not undermining anyone's experience because I've never experienced that in my life, but what an amazing outlook to still have gratitude no matter what you've gone through. Of
Yeah, and again, it might be more divine intervention and the power of prayer that led me to it.
course.
But I remember, like, when I was first given that, "Hey, you might only have 4, 6, 8 weeks left. You're probably not gonna make it to Mexico like you want." So I wanted to go to Mexico for holistic, treatment, and the doctor looked right at me and says, "You're probably not gonna make it that far, or you don't have that long to get there."
So what's running through your mind when that happens and the doctor tells you that? Like, are you just like in shock? Like, what is running through your mind at that moment?
Shock, anger, confusion, just you don't know what to make of it. You don't know what to think. You don't know who to trust. You don't know what to trust. You don't, it like, for me, I was like, how could I be okay and now I'm dying? To be, I think it was 43, 44 when I got my diagnosis. It was only 3 years ago. It was like, okay, God, you gave me this wonderful job. I'm now able to help these families and provide, financial assistance to people. This is amazing. And for the first time, I really wanted to live.
Yeah.
Like I had been floating through life. I was good. It wasn't like I was suicidal, but I didn't have a drive. I didn't have a passion. And when I learned I could make really good money helping people, I was like, I had this drive, I had this passion, I had these dreams. And I was only 6 months into this new lifestyle and this new journey. And now I'm dying. And I literally looked up at the heavens and said, God, you've got a twisted sense of humor, dude. I'm like,
Right.
what now? And I literally like sat on my couch and just stared at a blank wall for I don't even know how long, 3, 4 days. Like I just was numb. And a lot of it started with a little bit of anger, resentment, why me, yada, yada, all the what I would consider to be the normal feelings. I don't know how other people have processed this news.
Of course.
But then all of a sudden, I kind of hitting back on what I opened with, God's voice kind of came down because I was out of my own thoughts. For 3, 4 days, I had thought every thought I had and just numb. And my world went silent. No thoughts, no nothing. And all of a sudden, God just kind of was like, girl, knock it off. I set you up too good for this to not succeed. And it took me a second to process it, but I started thinking about it. I'm like, 20 years ago, bad car accident, drug addiction through the hospitals, learned not to like hospitals and not trust doctors. Okay. 6 months ago, I quit a 6-figure job, sold all my properties, got into selling life insurance, took my first policy out on myself, also had my first policy paid out on myself.
Wow.
So I had the funds to pursue as holistic treatment as possible.
So when you got diagnosed with this cancer, when the stage 4 cancer, was holistic healing something you had looked into before? Or is that kind of what opened up that floodgate of approach for yourself?
Well, I had seen my father and grandfather go through round after round of cancer, and I didn't want to be a medical guinea pig. I have the same gene that makes me more predispositioned to getting like 4 or 5 different types of cancer. It's called Muir-Lynch syndrome. It's not very common, but it is very genetic. It's not something you can contract. And so I just knew that I needed to make my body as resistant to cancer as possible if I didn't want to follow in the footsteps of my dad and my grandfather. They come from a generation of trusting doctors, and unfortunately, I no longer feel like we can.
I agree.
I know my mother, she was, talking about it afterwards. She goes, it was really scary to watch you walk away from the doctors, but she understood why. And that's just simply, I chose quality over quantity. I don't know. Let's see here. Let's back up a little bit. Like, I want to say maybe 4 weeks, 5 weeks after I was diagnosed, I was literally in the hospital dying. They had removed, I forget how many pounds of tumors, low teens, at 13, 14 pounds of tumors, the first surgery. And then next thing I know, had all these crazy nightmares, which I thought were very true. And I woke up with an ostomy bag. And so immediately I was a prisoner of the medical mafia. Like there was no way around it. I was on feeding tubes, feeding me things so sugary. It made me an insulin dependent diabetic for the first time in my life.
Wow.
Sugar feeds cancer. So as I'm
Yes.
being fed something that's killing me, I'm also being given crazy amounts of chemicals trying to save me. So I'm like, what are you guys trying to do to me? And so as soon as I got home, I knew nutrition was important. And I promise you, the first 2, 3 weeks I was home, my mom was trying to force feed me little bites of bananas, crackers with peanut butter, anything she could get me to eat.
Right, right.
But being woken up with an ostomy bag and literally pooping out of your chest, I hate to be that graphic, but that's what it is. And it's gross. And I didn't want to eat because I didn't want anything coming out in the bag.
Right, right. Yeah.
Like, it was just uncomfortable. It was gross. I wanted no part of it. Plus, I was totally dissected and rearranged. I was in pain. That didn't help wanting to eat. So I really focused on nutrition by using Kachava. It's a great brand, 75 superfoods or 85 superfoods. Not here to plug it. It was just the best thing that I could find for nutrition in my system. And for me, it was variety because I didn't know what helped with what yet.
Yeah.
And so, a couple bananas, some milk, and some Kachava in a blender. That was where my journey started as far as chasing the nutrition. And then it came into juicing and it came into multiple different things. But pursuing the holistic bit was more just, I didn't want to be medically tortured the rest of my life. Treatment is needed. Without treatment, I would not be sitting here talking to you. But when I felt like they were over treating me, like after my ostomy was reversed about 8 months after the ostomy I had it reversed. And then after that reversal, that's when I really took my holistic journey even more seriously because the immunotherapy treatments were really starting to make bad rashes on my hands and other parts of my body. This is when the doctors wanted me to start going and visiting more doctors and more doctors. And I was just like, no, I'm going home to die my way. And I stopped all immunotherapy treatments. I'd only received 6, but they had noticed on my scans improvements and they couldn't explain my miraculous progress.
That's amazing,
Well,
especially where you were given, what did you say, like 1 to 2 weeks to live, basically?
it was a couple weeks when I was in the hospital, but yeah, a month or 2 to live, but still not very long.
And this is and what you were doing was a holistic approach, and the doctors couldn't even explain the progress that they were seeing.
No, and as soon as I told him what I was doing on the side, I remember my doctor looking at me going, nutrition just doesn't play that big of a part.
Which is, not to interrupt you, but, like, it's so scary to me almost how blindsided a doctor could be and uneducated, and I'm not saying that they're not educated in certain things, but how the medical industry is really teaching people who are doctors in a way to keep people sick because diet is the root cause. I was watching a documentary on Netflix. It actually made me go vegan for like 6 months, which I would love to get back into that. I was so traumatized after watching it. But they were talking about the American Diabetic Association and that the foods that they had recommended on the website were actually foods that cause diabetes. And then how the American Heart Association funds red meat, which red meat, if you have heart condition, your doctor would say, "Oh no, lay off the red meat." But then the dietary restrictions that they had on the American Heart website were diets that basically funded heart failure, So it's so interesting to me that a doctor would see improvement within your body, but be so blindsided because of what they're being taught, which is medications, because they get paid per prescription that they're writing. And on top of that, they also, give you a medication, which certain medications might be needed depending on the situation, but then that may cause issues in your body. And what do? Send you to another doctor and give you another medication. So they're not giving up
Treatments
the root cause.
treatments really are supposed to be meant for short term, acute
Right.
treatment.
Right.
Anybody that's on long term treatments for life that hasn't had an organ removed or wasn't born without a certain gene, there, as you said, there are certain times and reasons where, okay, lifelong treatment's needed.
Of course.
But typically speaking, and I don't know how many percentages, but I would say typically speaking, most diseases are designed to keep the medical mafia alive. Diabetes doesn't kill you, but it'll keep you on medication for life. Heart disease keeps you on medication after 50. Cholesterol meds keep you on medication after 50. None of this stuff will kill you. Cancer won't kill you, but look how many millions of dollars they're raising every minute for
So
cancer.
prior to your diagnosis with the stage 4 cancer, were you a person? Because I know that you said, like, you saw your father and your grandfather go through, things that you never wanted to have to go through. But before this time of your diagnosis, were you a person that more so trusted the doctors, I guess? And then after getting diagnosis is when you were kind of like, okay, like, I'm not going this route anymore. Obviously, you said you were looking for a more holistic, but prior to that, did you believe in like doctor care? Was that something you were more open to?
20 years ago changed that for me. I was in a really bad car accident. I had my face totally replaced. I think I've had 3 or 4 plastic surgeries to look as normal as I do now. And I still walk around with a limp and an ankle that looks all kind of messed up because, well, the doctors did fix it 4 times. I refused to quit rock climbing. I kept breaking it. It is what it is. I walk with a limp now. But they had me on so many different medications trying to make me feel better. This will help, this will help, this will help. Then I moved from New Hampshire down to South Carolina, and one of the doctors goes, you're on 7 of the most addictive medications, don't you? And I was so depressed, I couldn't get out of my room. I painted my whole room black, ceiling, walls, everything.
Wow.
Like I was a landlord and I was on Social Security. And so you wanted to pay your rent, you came to my bedroom to pay it. Like I left for church and I left for doctor's appointments. And then one day I just kind of woke up and said, you know what? This isn't me. This isn't my life. I might be in a lot of pain, but I've got more to this. This is not my story. And so any and everybody that was enabling me to stay in the same rut that I had found myself in after all those surgeries, I asked them to please exit my life. And that was a hard choice to make because they had supported me through a lot of that journey,
Right, right.
but they were keeping me stuck in that journey. And so they say you find the light in the darkness. And I had had 2 years of darkness and it was time. And so I faced my biggest fear of constantly living in pain every step of every day. And hey, within 6 months of being off pain meds, I barely felt the pain anymore. It was
It's awesome.
almost like the pain meds provoked it.
Well, yeah.
So again, short term, a lot of the medications they gave me would have probably been helpful. Long term, they were detrimental. So I had lost a lot of my faith in doctors almost 20 years ago.
Wow. Wow. Yeah,
God
well, because
set me up for this perfectly.
well, I remember you saying that when we talked on the phone that, when you got diagnosed, you heard that little voice that reminded you of that car accident, was like, "No, like, I've already set you up for this, so you know what's in store." So when you were sitting in the doctor's office and the doctor's like, "There's no way nutrition doesn't, can't really heal you in that way," it's almost like a it's so interesting because 'cause you're sitting there, but then you must have felt so empowered really within yourself and finding that natural resource
Well, in that
because it was go ahead.
I was saying in that same conversation with the doctor about the nutrition, I was also telling him that that felt that it was too much immunotherapy being pumped into me during my sessions and that I only wanted half a dose. And I remember he goes, "Well, we can't do a half a dose." I'm like, "What? You don't know how to divide by two?" The whole thing is they can't because the insurance companies drive it.
Yeah,
So it was all or nothing. And I just remember going, you know what? If you don't think nutrition works that well, but you can't explain my miraculous progress, it tells me it's not your drugs and that you just want to keep me hooked up for the sake of the study and the fact that they're getting $30,000 a month for immunotherapy out of me.
of course.
So I literally looked at him and said, no, I think I'm going to go home and die my way because, hey, if you face it, we're all going to die.
Right,
The only
right.
question is when. Make peace with it.
But at least you were able to see that progress. Like, I feel like and correct me if I'm wrong, but just seeing that progress that you were able to do and continuing that journey for yourself, like that must have had some empowerment for yourself to continue that, fight within what you were going through. And so now you're sitting here, it's been 3 years, 3 years later, and
Cancer free for a minimum of about, I want to say 17, 18 months now.
congratulations.
So
Yeah, God bless you. That's amazing. That's truly like so inspiring. What did the doctors say when they saw you cancer free? They must have been
no explanation. And I
right.
just said it's divine intervention and the power of God's living foods
That's
because that's
amazing.
truly what I did. I did a few little detoxes, took a few little supplemental things, listened to some of the noise and followed it in the beginning. But ultimately, the only thing I did and did well was get the chemicals out of my diet. I went 80% raw vegan, 20% I'll eat whatever I want, little goat cheese, a little bit of salmon, a little bit of chicken, but I try to keep the inflammatory foods to a minimum. And that way, I'm as alkaline as possible, eating clean, wholesome foods, primarily the ones that have the healing and detoxing powers, which are living foods or the raw foods. Cooked foods give you sustainable energy. And as a stage 4 or a recovered stage 4 cancer patient and 47 years old, I feel better than I did in my 20s. I
That's
have
amazing.
more energy than most people have. I think I sleep 6 to 7 hours a night and feel like I have 20 pots of coffee pumping through my veins. I
That's
don't even drink
amazing.
coffee. This is like an herbal tea.
It's so crazy what diet does for you. Like, it's just
Yeah.
because inflammation, like sugar, like you were saying, and sugar's put in like 90% of, the processed foods that are, if not all of them, that are on the market. And I started learning about this stuff a couple years ago, but it's so interesting how, I mean, it makes sense. The foods were a machine, but diet is such a huge part. And I mean, you're a walking testimony of it. And I've heard that too because all the minerals and vitamins that we need are in the foods. And it's just such an interesting society that we live in because, we have the way that diet's promoted. It's like so unhealthy, but then we take supplements and then you take pills and then these supplements that we're taking, we don't even know. It's just so interesting. So, I'm very happy for you and congratulations, on all your success and for overcoming such a I know it's one day out of a time, but such a life changing. I'm so grateful that you're still here. Like you have that light. So to picture you, because I didn't know you back then, but obviously, I say every time I'm on this podcast, like we're brought through the dark so that way we can guide others to the light. Like that's what I feel like our responsibility is. And that's why when we were talking about, the path that you've been put on with what you're doing now, is you're still guiding people into that light. But picturing you in a painted black room, not being able to get up, and now I'm looking at you and you have this like I painted my room dark brown one time too. I stole my mom's paint. I was when I was 15, I was definitely going through depression, but my room was dark brown too, so I understand. But just seeing you now and like you're in this bright environment and you have all these like cool, African like masks behind you and then you have this light in your eyes like, that is the light of being saved. That's the light of God. That's the light of somebody that's been able to see gratitude in what you said, like the most detrimental situation. So you should be so proud of yourself and, this job that you started, because I know you said you started this new career, it's been like life changing, like, and I know we talked a little bit of the phone about your journey to get there, but how did that kind of come into your world? Was this something that you were like looking for, or was it just kind of like, God brought it into your life?
Well, I'm pretty sure God brought it into my life because if somebody said I was going to sell insurance, I would have laughed at them.
Yeah.
But I was looking for something stay at home. I was looking for something that could match my income. I didn't want a boss. I wanted a flexible schedule. I'm like, that doesn't exist. I might as well just stay on social security the rest of my life. But no, I ended up coming just talking to James and he brought me into Symmetry and is teaching me how to build my own life insurance agency and it provides the ability to work from anywhere with internet. I mean, I've worked from Belize and Maine and North Carolina and Florida all this year so far.
Wow.
And so I can work from anywhere, get to help people both learn the industry and make money within the industry. And I also can help people with various life insurance products, be it tax free retirement savings to debt free life to mortgage protection. I mean, just all these amazing ways I can help people. And when my policy paid out for me and I didn't have to pay my bills for a year and I could afford the extras for the healthcare stuff that typical insurance won't pay for, it really showed me the impact it does have. It wasn't just a story, it was mine.
Mm.
And so for me to be able to find those people that really need and want my help is very rewarding. So it was definitely divine intervention, just the way it came about, because it was not necessarily the industry I was looking for. But it did fill all the boxes of what I was looking for. Remote, work from home, work for myself. I wasn't by myself. I still had a team and it was good money. So yeah, it just kind of all lined up well for me.
Yeah, and I love what you talked about because I know you said it was 6 months after that you found this new position that you got diagnosed with the cancer. And so, listening to you talk and hearing your story and it's so hard to say that sometimes like everything happens for a reason because, people go through really, really traumatic things. And then if you look at them and you're like, everything happens for a reason, sometimes it's like, well, what do you mean? Why would you say that? Right. But what I find empowering and also interesting is how you got this great job, this great opportunity. You got the diagnosis. You ended up finding a holistic approach to heal yourself, right? With the help of God as well, of course. And so now that you're doing life insurance, you're selling life insurance, but you're really connecting with people who are maybe going through really hard times or are very vulnerable or just all these different situations is God has given so much grace in a sense that you've experienced what you've experienced so that way you're able to touch people in such a different way. So sometimes the things that we go through in life, the hardships and everything, it's so we can relate and also have a different understanding when it comes to dealing with people. So I mean, I can only imagine like and you get to I know we talked about a little but you get to share your story with people that you're connecting with, which gives them that sense of safety because I mean that's, it makes people feel like they're not alone.
God gives us lessons and blessings in every hardship.
Of
And so
course.
everything does happen for a reason. And we can either be selfish and go, why me? In which case you'll never learn. But if you sit there and go, okay, well, obviously I'm going through this for a reason, trust the fact that you'll need it in your future and find the lesson and the blessing in it, then it just doesn't suck as bad.
Right. And then you're able to have like a different approach to it and a different ideology behind it. And you can picture the gratitude, in your life, which gratitude was a huge lifesaver for me because there was a time where, I definitely blamed God for what I was going through. But it's that poem Footprints that, there's one set of footprints and you look behind and then you're like, oh, I've been walking through this my whole by myself. And it's like, no, like I carried you through it, and so it gives you a
There was
different what? Oh, I believe that. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But we're like, "No, no," and they're like, "Come on." Come on, you're better than this. Yeah, but it's true, you know? And so when you look at your life and especially like with what you've overcome and what you've gone through, I mean, you're still here to share your testimony because, you know, I'm sure there's a lot of people every day that are going through certain similar situations that may be getting that news like and just don't even know what to approach, you know? And so by you still being able to be so vulnerable and open with people, like you're healing people every day. And I always say to people, like when we speak our truth, we heal. So even if it's traumas we've gone through, even if it, you know, could be anything, it's so empowering to be able to speak your testimony and share that with people because you never know who you're going to help. And I remember us talking and you saying that, you know, you've shared, is this the first podcast you've been on?
Yes.
Okay, well, I'm honored to have you on my podcast. Thank you for trusting me and my platform to have you on my podcast. But I remember you saying, like, you know, people have called me and just, you know, talked to me and just needed to be that person, and that's amazing too, and one thing I wanna honor you for is knowing who to distance yourself from if they weren't healthy for you, because I know that's not easy, and what that confirmed to me is that you finally, like, chose yourself. You chose yourself in a sense of surrounding yourself with like-minded people who can inspire and help you, and then you also chose yourself by walking away from the medical industry that so many people entrust in. So
Yeah.
that is really empowering.
It is. It is in a way. I never looked at it as such. So to hear it from somebody else going, that's empowering. I'm like, huh, I guess it is.
Yeah. You just have this, like I said, you just have this glow about you. And that's something that happens when you start doing a lot of like internal work on yourself and you start realizing, you know, because like you said, we're born into acceptance that someday we're going to every living thing dies on, right? So like that's we're born into this acceptance. Even if people don't want to accept it, it's just eventually we have an expiration date and that's everyone. But there's a difference and you said that I was kind of sleeping through life. Like I was going through life, but I didn't really have this sense of purpose or maybe this like awakening in a sense. And so it's just beautiful to see that and everything lined up in your life for a reason, you know? And I guess if there was like a word of advice that you could give somebody who maybe just going through a hard time right now or just kind of, you know, a crossroads of their belonging within themselves or anything, what would you tell that person if you could just reach out to someone and
I don't know if this is necessarily beginner advice, but I mean, my life has been riddled with painful moments, as I'm sure most people's has. You know, we've overcome a lot of challenges, and we can look at those challenges and stay bitter that you had to go through them. And in my mind, and I'm not trying to call anybody out here, but to me, that's a very selfish way to be. When you can look at everything you've done, just like when Christ died on the cross for us, he didn't say, why me? He said, forgive them. They don't know what they do.
mm.
You know, my cross will never be as big as his. Some days it might feel almost as painful, especially with the cancer battle, but it's not, you know? And so for me, it was all about finding ways I could give my pain a purpose. Because if you give your pain a purpose, it just doesn't hurt as much. And so to do that, you have to look for the lessons and blessings and things. And I remember before I even went to the hospital going septic, like I remember thanking God for giving me cancer because I was glad it wasn't my siblings. They all have families. I was glad it wasn't me watching a friend. I don't have kids. I don't have a husband. I had money coming in. I was set up to, you know, be okay through this. And so one thing I asked him was just, you know, please, Lord, allow me to be that living, breathing example my siblings need. And I truly thought I meant my 4 younger siblings. That's like what I was had in my head. But then I realized, no, it's for all of God's children. You know, He created us all to live in unison and help each other. And so, yeah, you know, I'll take the phone calls from people that I don't know. They're still my siblings in Christ, you know, and my heart goes out to anybody that has to deal with cancer. 1 in 3 Americans get cancer. And it is being fed to us through what they allow in our foods.
How did you, if you don't mind me asking, if you're comfortable answering this, but how did you know that you had it? Was it something that kind of just like came out of nowhere, or were you like, feeling sick? What ended up happening prior to your diagnosis?
Sure. That's a great question. So for about 2 or 3 years, I wasn't using the bathroom properly. It was just very thin stool. And I was just like, okay, I'm getting older. Maybe it's, you know, I need more, whatever, prebiotics, probiotics, cleaner diet. I already knew that, okay, I'm getting older. I need to do things a little different. And so I had cut out anything with certain things in it, you know, and And high fructose corn syrup was one of the first ones to go, and then it was MSG. I don't know. I just started creating lists. But I wasn't taking it super serious, but somewhat. And then from there, after a couple of years, one of my friends had gotten sick. She goes, Corie, you need to go get seen too. And I promised her I would. I let 2 or 3 months go by, and I was starting to be able to feel my food digest. Like when I ate it, I could almost feel where it was in my intestines. Yes, that's how impacted I got. But I went to the doctor, told him, hey, look, not pooping right. I can start to feel my food digest. And occasionally I get like these acute, like food poisoning episodes where I'm just sick for like 6 hours and I can eat 2 hours later.
Wow.
And he's like, huh. And so he pokes and prods on a normal checkup. He goes, well, you're due for a colonoscopy in a couple of years. Do you want to get it now or do you want to wait? Well, you're asking somebody who doesn't like doctors if I want to wait or if I want to go through this test that everybody complains about
Right, right.
for the
Of
first
course.
time. I'll wait 2 years, whatever. I can tough this out.
Yeah, it gives you
Mental work.
time, and then your mind, like, kinda not that I'm saying this was your experience, but, like, if I was to hear that, my mind would be like, "Oh, no, you're fine, again, you're just getting older, it's okay, like, it's your diet." Yeah.
Right.
Right, right.
Well, so I let about a month pass. I had 3 more episodes of this acute food poisoning. Went back to the doctor, said, "Look, there is something not right. I've had food poisoning once or twice in my life, and I'm getting it like once or twice a week off of normal foods that aren't bad. What's going on?" So she's like, "Oh, well, take this little test kit home and poop on the stick." So I did that and brought it back in, and then it was a whirlwind. How fast can we get you seen here? How fast can we get you seen there? And I forget how many areas of concern I had. I think it was like 12 or 13 areas of concern. And they were like, yeah, you've got stage 4 colon cancer. It's metastasized to like, I think it was like my liver, kidney, outer walls of my stomach. I don't know. It's just widespread.
And that was all from the test that you took home, that they were able to see that?
No, they scheduled a colonoscopy very quickly
So
within a week.
you didn't wait 2 years to get your colonoscopy?
No, I didn't have time. Like after
Okay.
that little poop bag that they sent me in. And so I had my diagnosis within a week after the colonoscopy, and I was in the hospital going septic and dying within 3 or 4 weeks after that. So it all happened very, very quickly. And it was only by the power of God and the power of prayer and that I came out of the hospital.
Wow.
Because I couldn't help myself. I was in an induced coma on feeding tubes, feeding me sugary stuff, trying to induce more cancer while they were trying to cut it out and save me. Like, really?
Yeah, the power of prayer is really powerful, and some things, like, you don't have reasoning for besides I think, like, a lot of people, they always try to look for which I'm into science, but I also have faith, and I but sometimes people, seeing they feel like they need to, like, understand it, like doctors, for instance, like, there has to be a scientific, like with the diet there is, but prayer is so powerful.
Yeah. And I had so many churches praying for like the way most people do a GoFundMe. It was like a prayer fund me. Every friend had me on every church's prayer list. My mom, like family, and I've got a huge family on her side. Just everybody praying for me. And it was through the power of prayer that I got through the hospital.
That's amazing. Yeah, and so having this awakening and now, where you are and being cancer free and having this great career and the opportunity to help so many people, like, I mean, now you're living, you're not existing, you're living, which is amazing. So life is obviously when you go through something like that, like you must just have a totally different outlook on life. I mean, you said it, right? Like gratitude and just
Every day
waking
is
up.
a gift. Yeah. My grandmother had this nice, silver set. And it was only for, fine dining occasions when we had dinner parties or whatever. And it was getting towards the end of her life, maybe 2, 3 years before she died. And it was just she and I and maybe one other person for lunch. And she goes, Corie, why don't you pull out the fine china? And I was just like, huh? What's the special occasion? And she goes, it's today, it just like every day, and now it's like, okay, I'm going to use my favorite dishes, not put them in a glass hutch. I'm going to, today is special. It's the only
Yeah,
time you're going to get to live it. So make today amazing on purpose.
I love
And then,
that.
yeah,
Yeah, it's so true. Every day's a gift. And I always say that, like, even just waking up, taking a breath, being able to feel the breeze, opening your eyes, seeing, being able to conversate, like, it's being able to breathe. I don't want to say I was very materialistic for a long time, but like when I was going through my active addiction, I always had this ideology of like, okay, well, If I was a millionaire, I'd be happy. If I had this, I'd be happy. If I had this, I'd be happy. When I was spiritually bankrupt, but if I had all the materialistic stuff in the world, my ideology at the time was that I would be happy. But the truth is like you said, materials, because when we pass on, they're not here. Of course, they're great. Certain things we need to survive, obviously,
Mhm.
basic needs. But yeah, no, every day is truly a gift. And I had a woman, she was my sponsor, and she was an older woman. She always put sparkles in her hair, right? And she used to say, she was like, every day's Christmas. She's like, every day is Christmas. And what she meant was just every day was a celebration. Every day was a day to be grateful, and there was joy and everything. And that's why, I love, hearing people like yourself just take life seriously, but don't take it so seriously that you're not enjoying it. Take what you need to and do what you can. Certain things we can't control, and focus on what you can, because
Well,
realistically,
I was gonna say, starting your day is one of the best ways to gain control because, well, nothing has come at you yet. And I
right.
remember when I was trying to get out of my depression and my funk, it was probably a Facebook meme, right as Facebook memes were becoming popular or something. And it said something like, everybody has two choices in the morning. You can get up and say, good God morning, or you can get up and say, good morning, God. What are you going to choose?
I love that.
And I was just yeah, what kind of day am I gonna have? But and it's just, how do you approach it?
It's
And
really it's really you're changing your mind, which isn't easy, but it's just one day at a time. Sometimes it's 10 seconds at a time, and sometimes it's small goals like changing your diet. Or I always tell people, I'm like, getting out of bed, making your bed, going, if you want to get back into exercise, going for a short walk. It doesn't have to be long, just certain things that are small goals can make like such a huge difference. Practicing morning gratitude. I have a group of people that we send morning gratitude every morning together. And that kind of sets your mind up for the day, which is beautiful, because it's the simple things, and you can get in that negative headspace of, oh, well, I have to rush to work and I have to do this. But it's like, okay, today I'm grateful I woke up. I'm grateful that my kids are healthy. I'm grateful that I have a reliable transportation to get to work. Like, there's just so many things that, you can be grateful for. The sunrise, like so many things. So, you are an incredible human, and I am grateful that you're still here. And I'm so grateful, and like I told you on the phone, just honored to be connected with you. God always gives us what we need to hear, and like you doing this with me today, like I needed to hear. I feel inspired. So thank you for, giving me the time, and for trusting me with your story, and for trusting me on my platform as well. Hearing your story
really
helped.
my honor and my pleasure.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. It's amazing.
Yeah,
So is there anything else that you want to share? So Corie, thank you so much for being here on Faith Over Fear. I appreciate you.
absolutely. No, thank you for having me. It's really truly been my honor and my pleasure, and I hope this helps somebody, I truly do.
You're
It's a
absolutely
scary
always
journey. It's a scary journey, and I remember just the fear I had, but just like in the title of your podcast, if you can put your faith over your fear, God prevails. He really does.
absolutely. Well, thank you so much. And, God bless you in your journey and everything that you're going to continue to do, because I know it's going to be nothing but amazing. And for everybody that's watching, this is Corie Watkin. Again, she has an incredible testimony. Thank you so much for tuning in. And Faith Over Fear is a weekly podcast, is available on YouTube, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Amazon Music, Audible, and Spreaker. So, Corie, thank you so much. And God bless everybody. I hope you have a good week, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you. God bless you too. Have an amazing week on purpose with purpose.
I love that. Perfect. Thank you so much, Corie.